Honorable Chairman, Sir, I rise to join all honorable members of this august House in conveying our sincere thanks to the Honorable President for our enlightened address. The debate on the President's address has been very wide-ranging. I thank all the honorable members from all sides who have contributed to this debate. Mr. Chairman, Shri Venkaiah Naidu, speaking on behalf of the NDA, mentioned that the President's address does not lay out a road map. I do not agree with this findings of Shri Venkaiah Naidu, and I will draw his attention to paragraph 10 of the President's address, and I quote, the President has said, "My government will work on 5 important challenges that our country faces today. 1, to strive for livelihood security for the vast majority of our population and continue to work for the removal of poverty, hunger and illiteracy from our land. 2, to achieve economic security through rapid and broad-based development and creation of productive jobs for our people. 3, to ensure energy security for our rapid growth. 4, to realize our developmental goals without jeopardizing our ecological and environmental security. 5, to guarantee our internal and external security within the framework of a just, plural, secular, and inclusive democracy." Sir, since the presentation of the budget for 2012-2013, the Finance Minister has elaborated in his budget speech on further challenges that our economy faces. The economic survey that has been presented to both houses of Parliament also deals with these issues, and therefore I will be very brief when it comes to dealing with the state of the economy. Sir, the President in paragraph 9 mentions that the year 2012-13 will mark the first year of the 12th five-year plan that sets the goal of faster, sustainable and more inclusive growth. The approach paper sets a target growth rate of 9% for the 12th five-year plan with 4% growth for agricultural sector. The President's address highlights the working of the existing programs as well as some new initiatives that our government proposes to take to bring about faster, sustainable and more inclusive growth. Sir, at the outset, I would like to mention that honorable members will recognize that all the economies of the world are today in the midst of very uncertain times. The industrialized countries, in the wake of the financial crisis of 2008-2009, have registered only a fragile recovery. In the year 2011, the growth rate of the industrialized countries was half the level that was achieved in 2010-11. And we are all affected by this disturbing economic environment that faces us. One consequence of this is there has been too much of liquidity in the world economy. It has put pressure on commodity prices of food grains, of petroleum products, and fertilizers in particular have gone up, and therefore there has been pressure on our balance of payments. There has also been pressure on prices. These are the circumstances in which our economy has to chart out a path, and I would be the last one to say that we do not face difficulties. We do face difficulties, and it's my honest assessment that the difficulties that we face, a balance of payments deficit on current account, which is now as high as 3.6%, a deficit on fiscal balance account of 5.9%, is something we cannot tolerate year after year, and therefore I appeal to all the members of this august House to recognize the pitfalls, the dangers that lie ahead if we do not rise to the occasion and help the government to undertake remedial measures in time. Mr. Chairman, sir, in this uncertain environment, our own economic performance of about 7% growth, though slower than what we had hoped, must be regarded as commendable. Of course, we cannot view this as an acceptable outcome. We must strive to improve upon this in the next year and return as quickly as possible to a higher growth path. And we must do this while also ensuring that we make progress toward our objective of achieving inclusive growth with reasonable price stability. For this, we need a broad-based national consensus covering all sections of political opinion represented in our parliament. This is an occasion when we must eschew narrow partisan ends and stand united as a cohesive nation. Mr. Chairman, sir, we grew at 9% for the 5 years before 2008, and I do believe that we can get back to that kind of growth rate provided we can agree on a number of difficult decisions. If we succeed in that objective, we will ensure that India continues its rise as an economic power with the economic capability of reducing the age-old poverty from which we have suffered and filling the gaps which are all too evident in critical areas such as health, education, and skill development, provision of clean drinking water, and sanitation. Mr. Chairman, sir, we need to focus in particular on the development gaps affecting the weaker sections of our population, such as the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, the OBCs, the minorities, and other disadvantaged groups. I would like to assure honorable members that we will rise to the occasion. The 12th five-year plan, which will be presented to the NDC sometime in the middle of the year, will lay out a credible plan of action for faster, sustainable, and more inclusive growth. I therefore do not propose to deal with the economic scene in greater detail. The Finance Minister has touched upon that issue in his budget speech, and in addition, there will be a debate on the general budget that will be an occasion for the honorable members to express their views and for the government to reply to their concerns. Sir, I wish to deal only with one or two issues. One is with regard to the charge that our government is destroying the fiscal structure of our country, which is described as federalism. Sir, nothing could be farther from the truth. Let me assure the Honorable House that our government is committed as ever before to uphold the constitutional imperatives in letter and in spirit. Terrorism and left-wing extremism are two issues which I believe would unite the nations to work out comprehensive, coordinated strategy to tackle the menace of terrorism as well as left-wing extremism. What happened in Odisha earlier this week, where two Italians were abducted by left-wing extremists, is a grim reminder to all of us that our nation's security can be in danger if we are not very careful or alert to tackle the problem of left-wing extremism as well as terrorism. Sir, our government is committed to providing fully secure living conditions to its citizens, and it will take every possible step to deal with the menace of terrorism. In fact, setting up the NCTC is an important step in that direction. Concerns have been raised that the central government is trying to encroach upon the jurisdiction of state governments, and it has been suggested that they should be taken into confidence before the center becomes operational. The question of setting up the National Council of Terrorism Center has been discussed at various fora since the report of the group of ministers appointed by the previous government and the recommendation of the second administrative commission were submitted. Multi-agency center that was established in 2001 was a precursor to the NCTC, and the need for a single and effective point of coordination for counter-terrorism has been discussed in meetings on internal security of Chief Minister in the last couple of years. As has been pointed out by some members, that a number of CMs have expressed their concern after the order was issued, and I have replied to them that there will be consultations before the next steps are taken. The consultation was held on 12th March 2012 with the Chief Secretaries and the DGPs from different state governments. A meeting of the Chief Ministers on internal security has been called, which was originally scheduled for 15th February, but because of election, it had to be postponed. It is now scheduled on 16th April. Therefore, adequate and full consultations will take place before the next steps are taken to operationalize the National Counter-Terrorism Center. I think that the idea of an NCTC and the manner in which the NCTC will function are two separate issues. The ideas of National Counter-Terrorism Center, you have all agreed, is unexceptional. On the manner in which the NCTC will function, there may be differences of opinion, but I am confident that through discussions and dialogue, these differences can be narrowed down and a broad-based consensus can be arrived. That will be our effort, and therefore this House has the assurance that nothing will be done which will in any way infringe with the federal imperatives of our constitutional setup. Sir, some other members brought up this question of the problems of Sri Lankan Tamils, and I will therefore spend a few minutes in describing our broad approach to dealing with the problems of the Sri Lankan Tamil communities. Sir, some members have raised concerns regarding the situation in Sri Lanka. The central government fully shares the concerns and sentiments raised by honorable members regarding the welfare of Sri Lankan Tamil. Since the end of conflict in Sri Lanka, our focus has been on the welfare and well-being of the Tamil citizens of Sri Lanka. Their resettlement and rehabilitation have been of the highest and most important priority for our government. The steps taken by the central government in this regard have been outlined in the suo motu statement made by the External Affairs Minister on 14th March 2012. As a result of our constructive engagement with the government of Sri Lanka and our considerable assistance program, a modicum of normalcy is beginning to return to the Tamil areas in Sri Lanka. There has also been progress given the withdrawal of emergency regulation by the government of Sri Lanka and the conduct of elections to local bodies in the northern province of Sri Lanka. Members have also raised the issue of human rights violation during the protracted conflict in Sri Lanka and on the US-initiated draft resolution on promoting reconciliation and accountability in Sri Lanka at the ongoing 19th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva. The Government of India has emphasized to the Government of Sri Lanka the importance of a genuine process of reconciliation to address the grievances of the Tamil community. In this connection, we have called for implementation of the recommendations contained in the report of the Commission appointed by Sri Lankan government that has been tabled before the Sri Lankan Parliament. These include various constructive measures for healing the wounds of the conflict and fostering a process of lasting peace and reconciliation in Sri Lanka. Sir, we have asked the government of Sri Lanka to stand by its commitment towards pursuit of a political process through a broader dialogue with all parties, including the Tamil National Alliance, leading to the full implementation of the 13th Amendment to the Sri Lankan Constitution, so as to achieve meaningful devolution of powers and genuine national reconciliation. We hope that the government of Sri Lanka, recognizing the critical importance of this issue, acts decisively and with vision in this regard. We will remain engaged with them through this process and encourage them to take forward the dialogue with the elected representatives of the Sri Lankan Tamils. As regards the issue of a draft resolution initiated by the United States at the ongoing 19th session of the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva, we do not yet have the final text of the resolution. However, I may assure the House that we are inclined to vote in favor of the resolution that we hope will advance our objectives, namely the achievements of a future for the Tamil community in Sri Lanka that is marked by equality, dignity, justice, and self-respect. Mr. Chairman, there are a number of other issues which have been raised. Several members have expressed concerns about the state of our agriculture. Concern has been expressed about the suicide of farmers. Let me say that I share these concerns, and it has been the effort of our government to revitalize, to put more vigor into the development processes for agriculture in the last 7.5 years that we have been in office. And already there are indications that the growth of agricultural production has gone up to about 3 to 3.5% in the 11th five-year plan, as against less than 2% in the preceding 5 years. But I am not the person who will say that we are satisfied. We will work studiously, we will work with all the vigor that we are capable of in imparting a new momentum of dynamism to our agriculture, and that's a commitment that we have undertaken. We will discharge our responsibilities in that direction. Sir, there has also been concerns have been expressed about various other matters like the black money. Now, the finance minister in his budget speech has explained the government's approach, how we propose to deal with that, the menace of black money. He has also promised the House that the government will come forward with a white paper. I therefore hope that there will be ample opportunities in the rest of the session to deal with these issues. Therefore, I will not take more time of this House. And with these words, I once again join all the members in conveying our grateful regards and thanks to the Honorable President, and I sincerely hope that we will pass the motion for thanks with acclamation.